Okay. Ja, sé Marwin Clark ine sé cinlí tíní gluiseflan in isle ádó Sanjikin an basistín má I déiscéisisin de sé dó náist eide chabatha é de sin nula tún an is a dead ná seo. I'm from Tuba City, Arizona. That is where I was raised. My mom's side of the family, they're from Rocky Ridge, the Nebito area. And then my father, they're from Clagito, um, sort of towards um, Greasewood area, and that's a little bit about where I come from. I'm the undergraduate recruiter for Northern Arizona and New Mexico as well. So I work with a lot of the students in located on the reservation, the Navajo and Hopi Reservation. And for the past 2 months, I've been visiting a lot of students, and I got to know a lot of people and meet a lot of different students from throughout Arizona and New Mexico. So that's been really cool. I was previously a high school teacher. I taught social studies for about 8 years in Tuba City, Arizona. So I got to work with a lot of students as well. And so I want to talk a little bit about our admissions process and our um, undergraduate admissions for the University of Arizona. So I will talk a little bit about some of the cool things we have on campus and a lot of the cool resources that we have available and how that's applicable to you as a Native American student. And I want to talk a little bit about our admissions process as well. Let me kind of zoom through some of these. So one thing I noticed that with a lot of students from Northern Arizona, a lot of them have never really been to Tucson, and a lot of them didn't really know where the University of Arizona was located. So it was actually pretty interesting to, see a lot of students ask whether the University of Arizona was in Flagstaff or Phoenix or um, wherever. And so a lot of people weren't familiar with Tucson as well. And so I usually say it's about the same size as Albuquerque, and they have a lot of pretty cool stuff that you would find in a lot of cities as well. So Arizona, the University of Arizona is sorry. The University of Arizona is the flagship university of Arizona, and there's a lot of cool things with that. So currently, there are about 56,000 students enrolled, with 45,000 of them being undergraduates, which is a pretty good, decent sized number. So it's not as big as some universities, but it's also not as small as some universities. And so I usually say you get the best of both worlds. You get that big campus feeling, but you also get that personalized relationship with your faculty that you would at a smaller university, which is beneficial because, in some cases with some universities, you have these big, huge classes. And so with us, we have a 19 to 1 student faculty ratio. So for every 19 students, we have a faculty. And so what that means is on average, your class sizes would be about 30 to 35 students. And that's beneficial because you get that opportunity to engage with your faculty and to develop that personalized relationship with them. And I always encourage students to, get to know your faculty. Don't ever let them overlook you, or don't ever let them, forget your name. You want to get to know them really well because there's benefits to that. When you get to know your faculty, a lot of times they'll cut you some slack. They'll be willing to, maybe extend a deadline for you or give you extra credit or write you a letter of recommendation. And so it's always great to have that ability to get to know your faculty. So those are some of the numbers with our university. We have about 400 student clubs that pertain to all sorts of things. There's clubs that pertain to a lot of different interests that you may find, whether it's running or hiking or weightlifting, or whether it's related to, the STEM field. There's a lot of opportunities to meet other students and to engage with them in a way that is conducive to your experience as a college student. And so this is one of the hallmarks of a university education is to get involved with student clubs. And I always say that's a chance for you to find yourself and to build up your skills, your abilities, your knowledge, and to meet other people. And so for me personally, when I was a university undergraduate, I benefited tremendously by engaging in student clubs. And that's one of the things where I developed my skills in terms of, networking or, public speaking or organizing or, just managing my time. And I usually say it's sort of like it's kind of almost like another class or it's kind of almost like another job in the sense that you have responsibilities with it that can help, you develop as a person. Um, with Ivy League schools, they take their clubs very seriously to the point where, they interview people for it. And they have a whole panel where they ask students, questions and it's pretty much like a hiring process. And so that just kind of shows, how beneficial clubs are as a student. So with the University of Arizona, you have 400 plus, opportunities for that experience as well. But we have 150 plus majors spread across a lot of 20 different colleges. And a lot of them, let me skip ahead real quick. These are some of our big major popular degrees. I noticed a lot of native students, they go to business. And so I was recently told that that's the number one major for students at the University of Arizona for Native American students is business. But another, a lot of our Native students, they're very interested in psychology. They're interested in engineering and nursing as well. So you would definitely have those opportunities at our university. We're often rated in the top 10 for public universities in the West, um, which is pretty interesting when you consider all the public universities in the Western United States. That's a pretty good ranking. In addition, Princeton recently gave us a shout out by, naming us one of the best colleges in the country. And the University of Arizona is a Hispanic serving institution. So what that means is that a quarter of our student population are Hispanic. And that is pretty cool because, going to a university, a lot of times it can be overwhelming and scary. And as a native student, and it's helpful to know that, there's other people of color at the university as well. So, that's something that students, take into consideration as well. We are a tier one research institution. So every year the university gets about $1 million to fund undergraduate research. And so a lot of times, students, they think, okay, like, what does that mean? It sounds like more homework. But really, it's about more opportunities to engage in your field and to expand the knowledge of that discipline and to do research that, furthers the field. And so recently, for example, over the summer, one of our students discovered a new species of mushrooms that had never been documented in Tucson before. And so, it kind of sounds like, okay, like what does mushrooms have to do with anything? But in what that means is that that student would be able to, have their name tied to that research. And that opens doors. And that's, an opportunity for them to, you know, get their foot into the door with maybe an internship or, to increase their chances for a scholarship or a grant, or even just to, put that on their resume. So you would have chances and opportunities to do, cool things like this at our university. We also have the W.A. Frankie Honors College, which is an opportunity for students to engage in a more um, sort of robust and greater opportunity on campus. And so in high school, usually honors classes in high school, it's sort of like harder assignments. It's more about kind of like greater rigor. But with the W.A. Frankie Honors College, it's more about creating better opportunities, creating better connections. It's about creating an environment that is conducive to, learning and growing as a person. So it's not so much about harder classes and harder assignments, but it's more about mentorship and, guidance and creating a community that will help you grow as an individual. So keep that in mind as well. We have a lot of study abroad programs as well. Some of our study abroad programs, they vary from, going to a country for a week, or it could be a summer, or a semester, or a whole year. There's a lot of different countries you can go to. Some of the more popular countries that students go to include France, Spain, um, South Korea, Britain, Mexico. There's a lot of chances for students to go to different countries and to engage with those communities and with those cultures and to expand their experience and their knowledge. And so, as someone who engages in a study abroad program, they're still tied to the university. They're still affiliated with the university, but essentially they're taking their classes in another country. And so there's a lot of cool things like that. And this is another hallmark of a university education. So this is something that the university provides, and there's a lot of scholarship opportunities to help students pay for that. So very cool and very awesome. And so this is something that I wish I did when I was an undergraduate as well. The University of Arizona also has a lot of support embedded into the campus as well. There's a lot of opportunities for students to get the assistance and the help that they may need. And this is important too, because as a Native American student, when you transition from high school to a university, that transition can be overwhelming. It could be disorienting, confusing, frustrating, scary, and sometimes students they don't transition as smoothly as other demographics. And this is something that has been, documented widely. And, so much so that we have a name for it, and we refer to it as, culture shock. A lot of Native American students, they experience culture shock when they come from, their rural communities on the reservation or coming from a different cultural demographic background. When they go to a university, it can be overwhelming. And as a result, some students drop out. And as I mentioned, I used to be a high school teacher and I've worked with a lot of students, and I've seen it happen firsthand. And then also when I was in a university student, I seen it firsthand as well. I went to university and I worked with students who were valedictorian of their high school, and they got accepted into a university with Chief Manolito scholarships or Gates Millennium scholarships, and when they went to a university, it was too disorienting, and the transition wasn't smooth, and as a result they either dropped out or they had to, they went home, or, they went to a community college because they felt like they weren't ready. And so, all of that to say is that with our university, we provide a lot of support throughout the campus. And it's important to seek that as a Native American student, as a first generation student. It's important to know what resources are there to help you succeed. And so I like to highlight these ones because they're really interesting and they're really cool. And I think a lot of students would benefit from it. So the first one is the SOS, which is an office that you can go to ask any kind of question, whether it pertains to, your classes, or whether it pertains to your financial aid, or, pretty much anything that you can think of. When I was a university student, it seems like I always had something that would come up. Maybe, um, for example, like I was telling the students recently that when I was an undergraduate, um, my financial aid disbursement was delayed. And then when I got it, didn't get the full amount that I was supposed to get. And, I didn't really know what was happening and I didn't know what to do. And I had to message my brother and I said, what do I do? What's going on? And he told me, like, you have to go to the office and you have to talk to them and figure it out. And there's a lot of times that happened to me where something went wrong and I had to fix it. And a lot of times I had to message my family to figure out how to do it. And some students they don't have that support. Maybe they're the first in their family to go to a university. And so this is cool because you can go to this office and you can ask them any question. You can text them, you can call them, you can email them, you can hop on their website and start a chat bot, you can go straight up to their office and just walk up to their desk and ask them a question. So this is really helpful, and this is something I think that a lot of students can benefit from, especially native students. We also have the think tank as well. This is a peer tutoring resource, and this is available for students who need assistance with their assignments and students who need that additional support. Sometimes when you um, enroll in classes, you're going to have a professor who has, you know, they all have different teaching styles, and their style of teaching might not, resonate with you. Some professors, I usually say they think up here and they talk up here, and sometimes they don't know how to like lower it and kind of like speak at your level. And so sometimes you might go to a lecture and you might have a class and, you might walk out of that class not really knowing what was being talked about, or the concepts that were discussed might have just kind of went over your head. And if that ever happens to you, or if you ever experience that, you can always, of course, reach out to the professor and, go to their um, classroom visiting hours. But another thing you can do is also just go to the think tank and get the tutoring service that you may need. And a lot of other students who have already taken those classes, who have done those assignments, they can, discuss these things with you and they can go over the assignments with you. You can bring your homework over there and just point out a question and be like, okay, I need help with number five. And, people will help you, other students, usually. And this is really helpful as well. And a lot of students do take advantage of it. Um, I'm told that during midterms and finals, it gets busy in there. And a lot of students, they usually need help with math or science related courses. So another thing to think about as you're exploring college is to think about the resources and whether, they provide these kind of assistance to you. And then we also have the SALT Center. And this one is really cool too, as well, because the SALT Center provides services to individuals who have learning or attention challenges, whether that's ADHD or anxiety or depression. They're able to help students with these challenges be successful in college. They can help you, of course, with mentoring and tutoring, but they can also help students, build out a schedule, build out their calendar. They can help students, learn how to manage their time. They can help students, develop learning strategies and learning techniques that can make it, easier for them. They can help them learn how to manage, whatever condition they may have, whether it's ADHD. They can help them, develop strategies to help manage that. So they really work with students personally, and they help them, become successful in a university setting. And I really like this one because as a former educator, when I was a high school teacher, we have a lot of students who have different learning challenges, and sometimes those students they'll get what they call an IEP or a 504, which are documents that mandate teachers to assist students and to work with them. And when I was a teacher, a lot of my coworkers, I heard other teachers say like, we're just babying them. Oh, we're just coddling them. We're enabling them. And they would say like, when they graduate, nobody's gonna care. Nobody's gonna help them. When they get a job, when they go to university, nobody's gonna, help them out in any way. So, we just need to, you know, they just need to learn how to do it, which may be the case, but with the University of Arizona, that wouldn't be the case. And with the University of Arizona, we do provide resources for students who may need that as well. So this is really cool. And I usually think about a conversation I had recently with one of my former students, and he was telling me, he was saying, I want to go to a university, but I'm not a good reader and I'm not a good writer, and I don't know if I would be able to, you know, do good. And sometimes I think of them when I think about the SALT Center. So very cool resources. Definitely something to consider as you're looking into colleges and um, any kind of college, any kind of university. Think about the resources that they have that will help you um, with that transition. Some other things I want to mention too is the Autumn Key, which is a Native American dormitory on campus, which is very unique as well. And again, kind of going back to that culture shock and that transition, a lot of times students they get lonely when they go to a university. And a lot of students they miss home, and students, they crave those relationships and those communities that they come from. And so it's always important to build your community when you go to a university. It's always important to um, create that community because that helps you, one, become successful, and it helps you um, manage that transition as well. So we have the Autumn Key, which is a Native American dorm, and this is really cool again because it gives you that opportunity to have those connections and those community um, members in your circle. And then we also have NASEP, which is the Native American Student Affairs. And this is another resource on campus that is specific to Native Americans. And they provide a lot of wonderful resources as well. They, of course, help mentor students and they can tutor students. They have a lot of cool spaces in their office where students can, set up shop to study or to meet with clubs. They even have like places where you can take a nap. They have a food pantry with spam. I've heard recently, so you can have those resources as well. A lot of cool things available. Of course, the university is really big on sports as well. And so I usually say if you go to a U of A basketball or football game, it's like going to a concert. And the energy and the enthusiasm that is present there is, it's fun, it's exciting, and it's a great way to also, relieve some stress and take a step away from your assignments and your club responsibilities, and it's a fun way to sort of just let loose and relax and have fun. And a lot of seniors and juniors, a lot of times they start worrying or they start stressing out or they start thinking like, what, this is my last homecoming, or oh, I'm going to miss homecoming. And I always say, if you go to the University of Arizona, you can always have that sort of homecoming feeling, especially with Bear Down Friday, which you see pictured here. It's sort of like homecoming. A lot of times they have bands that play, the cheer team comes out and they chant, and they have live music and they have like free swag they give away. Very fun experience, and it's something that you can be engaged in as well. And I have family members and friends who attended the University of Arizona, and they always go to the games and they always cheer them on. And I usually think like that's another cool part about being at the University of Arizona. Let me skip ahead real quick. Another thing too, with native students, of course, a lot of times one of the things that comes up is paying for college. How students they that's like one of the main questions that they have for me. And so with our campus, 9 out of 10 students, they do get financial assistance to some degree, whether that's through merit or other financial aid. And so this is something that's really important as well to consider. And another thing specifically that I want to talk about is the Arizona Native Scholars Grant, which is available for Native American students from um, one of the 22 federally recognized tribes from Arizona, which include, among others, the Navajo, the Hopi, the Apache, for example. And so if students are admitted, they have access to the Arizona Native Scholars Grant, which helps cover, tuition and also other mandatory fees. So it's a gap filler, meaning if, once you receive, merit or other scholarships, whatever is left over that needs to be paid, the Arizona Native Scholars Grant will cover that. It, however, does not cover costs for housing or food, but just the tuition and the mandatory fees as well. And then another thing too, it's only available for first year students who attend um, the main campus in person. And this is something that's really cool, though. It's very awesome that the University of Arizona provides this for Native American students. And it's something that a lot of people consider as they're looking at colleges. And it's something that a lot of Native students, it's something that makes them come to our university. Another cool thing too is the scholarship universe. So once you're accepted into the University of Arizona, you have access to Scholarship Universe, which is essentially a online portal which you can log on to, and you create a user account and you build out this profile, and you use that to look for scholarships, and you sort of it's kind of like it's a profile that you make, and you list all of this information about yourself and your background, and based upon that, it finds all sorts of scholarships for you. And this is very beneficial because, I always say, like, when I was in high school, I had to do it the old way, and I had to, go to, you know, the chapter house and look for flyers on scholarships, or I had to scour the internet and Google things to look for scholarships. But with the scholarship universe, it does all of that, legwork for you, which is really cool. So kind of going back to a few slides back, if I said anything that sort of intrigued you or made you raise your eyebrows or perk your ears up, I would encourage you to apply. And we have our early action deadline of November 1st, which is coming up pretty soon, in about a week and a half. And with this early action deadline, if you are to apply by this November 1st date, you increase your chances for merit, you increase your chances for admissions into the university, as well as the Frankie Honors College if you were to, um, submit an application with the Honors College as well. You can do it online or with the Common App, which we recommend if you are applying to multiple colleges. The Common App is, another resource that you can use. So the university now, they're doing a holistic review process. So they're no longer just looking at numbers. They're not just, we did away with the assured admissions. There's no longer a minimum GPA requirement. They don't require the ACT or SAT. Those are optional, however. And so, with the holistic review, they're essentially looking at students overall as a person. And they don't want to just know your numbers, your GPA, your grades. They want to know what sort of, activities and, events that you did in your community that make you stand out as an individual. So these are some of the things that they're looking at. Of course, they're still going to look at grades, in your academics. But one of the big things they're going to be looking at is activities and honors. And essentially, they want to know what sort of responsibilities that you have as a person at your school and your community that made you, you know, stand out. These can be extracurricular activities like sports, they can be, honors classes, they can be dual enrollment, they can be volunteering hours, they can be, student council, it can be band, it could be, being a student worker, essentially anything that had responsibility. We also have an essay, which is optional, but is highly recommended that students write an essay. And it's only 500 words. And with the essay, they ask these two questions here. The first one being, why is the University of Arizona the right fit for you? And then the second question is, how will your chosen academic area of study align with your interests, goals, and values? And so with each question, you have 500 words to respond with, maximum. And so, 500 kind of sounds like a lot, but when you consider all the things that you have done, those words they go by quick. And so a lot of times students they start to struggle with like, okay, what do I pick or what do I choose? Or they have trouble making it more concise. And so um, don't let that 500 word essay sound, don't let it be so daunting because, when you start to get in the groove, it goes by quick. And essentially, with the essay, you're sort of bragging about yourself. You're sort of highlighting your skills, your abilities, your character, and you're highlighting, yourself. And it's a chance to sort of like talk and brag about yourself to show why you would be successful at the University of Arizona. And essentially, you're saying, like, I'm ready because I've done this and I've done that. And, I have experiences with this and I have experiences with that. And because of that, I'm ready for this. And so essentially, you're hyping yourself up. With the essay, like I mentioned, although it's optional, it's definitely highly recommended because that's how you're going to make yourself stand out from other students. That's how you're going to make yourself, look good. And one thing to keep in mind while writing the essay and the personal statement, you essentially want to have the individuals who are reviewing your application, you want them to get to know you as a person, and it's almost like you're introducing yourself to them, and you want them to walk away after reading the essay feeling like they've met you in person, or you want them to feel like they know you if they were to meet you in person. So, those are some helpful guidelines when writing your essay. And this is the part that students usually take the most time with the application. This is the part that students get stuck with, and so it's always helpful to have someone look over your essay, whether it's an English teacher or a counselor or a family member who perhaps went to college, or someone who knows you as a person. So it's always helpful to get some other um, eyes on it. And so with the Frankie honors, if students are interested in that as well, the application is tied to the regular college application. And with the Frankie Honors, they do ask for additional material, such as a letter of recommendation, a writing sample, and then a resume. And they also have an additional essay question as well, which is listed here. And so again, with the Frankie Honors, you're sort of bragging about yourself, and you're sort of essentially saying, I'm ready for Frankie Honors College because I've had experiences with this, and I have experiences with this and that, and I know this and that. Or another way to emphasize your your readiness is to also talk about how the Frankie honors can help you as a student as well. And you want to mention, how the Frankie honors would be able to help you with your academic goals. So those are another thing. Those are things to consider when writing your essay. So another thing, if you were to submit an application by November 1st, you would hear back by January 15th. However, if you do miss the deadline of November 1st, you can still submit an application, but your application is going to go into the regular admissions process, and they do give out decisions in batches. So you may not hear back from them until March or April or May, depending on um, when you get a response back. And so if you do submit an application by November 1st, you'll hear by January 15th, and you have until May 1st to decide whether you want to go to the university. And I always encourage students, apply, you know, even if you're considering other colleges, submit an application. It's always interesting to see whether you can get in or not. And it's always something to do to increase your chances for um, knowing what you want to do. It's a good to apply to multiple universities because you want to weigh your options and you want to, you know, consider, multiple places. Another thing too, I always recommend visiting the campus as well because sometimes, students they might have their mind set on one place. And when they go there to visit, they're going to realize like, oh, actually, you know what? I feel like this isn't the best fit for me. Um, I always say, visiting a university, it's like trying on clothes. And you want to go there and, try it on. You want to see if it fits you. You want to see if it is something that will work for you. And so right now is a good time to visit the campus because students are on campus and they're attending classes. And if you were to visit, you would be immersed in that and you would see how it is having all the students on campus and you get a feel of the vibe of the campus. So we do offer a lot of different support in terms of visiting campus. Of course, you can do virtual tours, but you can also schedule a tour, with just you and your family, or you can go as a group. And they do have campus tours happening throughout the week, multiple times a day. So definitely come to the University of Arizona to visit if you're interested. It might also, knock it up higher on your list if you were to visit. Um, because again, sometimes, when students visit, it really changes their mind on where they want to go. So, this might help solidify your choice. So if you ever have any questions pertaining to the admissions process or campus life, you can always reach out to me, and you can either email me, call, we can do Zoom, and we can do all sorts of things to make that work. And I'll go ahead and stop right there.
Thanks, Marwin. Do any of you all have any questions so far? There was one question put in the chat by one of the students.
Mhm.
Let me see where it was. Why is it not showing up in my chat? The student said that they were interested in getting their degree and also pertain to the Marines, I believe. Like any I'm not sure if the student wants to clarify, but it sounded like they may have wanted to know about resources for folks who may be joining the military or opportunities for dual degree seeking with the military.
Um, we do have an RTC program, and we have an RTC program for all the main branches, which include the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and also the Marines. So that's something that you might want to consider. But also, as well, students who do serve in the military, they get the GI Bill, and that is another great resource for students to help, pay for the costs of college. And so that would cover that as well. And that's something a lot of students do take advantage of who have served in the military. And then the campus does have a veterans office as well. And they provide a lot of resources as well with veterans and people who have served in the military, even people who are um, you know, family members who have served in the military, they can go there too as well to seek resources.
Thanks, Marwin.
Mhm.
As folks think about any other questions that they have, I want to just share something briefly. So as you all likely were informed in previous sessions, this is a friendly reminder that you're part of a national network of pre-college STEM programs through the STEM Push Network. And within the STEM Push Network, we hope to increase the number of students who are interested in college and have information about college, specifically with STEM. And so in the summer, you all created a common application essay, and you received feedback on that essay from someone who was either a graduate student or professional, and they told you what could be tweaked in order to make the essay stand out more, right? And so within the common application, you can choose to apply to the University of Arizona through the University of Arizona database, or you can use the common application as well. One of the things that's not available within the common application, that's not available with the University of Arizona application, that is available with the common application is you're able to identify different community-based organizations that you're a part of. There's a lot of different community-based organizations included in there, including like Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, even College Horizons, if you've attended that. But there is the STEM Push Network. So under your profile, you would go under education and then go under community-based organizations, and you can list several of them. And so depending on if you have others to report, like the common application, you can increase the number, but you definitely have one, which is the STEM Push Network, because as part of NASEP, again, you're part of the STEM Push Network. And so by selecting the STEM Push Network, you're able to identify yourself as someone being a part of this vast organization. And not only that, it increases our visibility and our work. And as people who participate in the STEM Push Network are reporting this in the Common App, more people are becoming interested in saying like, okay, what is STEM Push? This is great. You have a great number of students who are doing fantastic things in STEM. We want to provide support to them. And so you can include information about like what you've done and things like that. Sorry, this is the page that has more information about other organizations. But with that, you're able to gain access to waivers and other items. Rudy, what are some of the other things that I might be missing in terms of opportunities with reporting for STEM Push? You're muted, by the way.
Sorry about that. Just as Carol mentioned, I think that we're seeing some colleges and universities that are noticing a good number of STEM push applicants coming from different programs. They're opening up different scholarship applications, waiving different application fees, things like that. So right now, there's not anything that's kind of coming to mind that's like something that would kind of become available to you. But I know that it's kind of this recognition of some of that outside work. If I'm not mistaken, too, both in the U of A application and in the Common App, there's ways for you to kind of um, go beyond just kind of sharing that you're in STEM Push, but then also being able to kind of share a little bit about the programs that you're involved with as well.
Yes. And with that, you all have been to the University of Arizona before. You've had experience living here, meeting
Mhm.
faculty, participating in different activities. And so I would really recommend that you highlight that in whatever way you can in your essay. If you decide to apply for the Honors College, making sure that your resume is updated and includes NASEP, because it's it's a very certain way that people can connect your experiences at the University of Arizona to your desire to go to school here, because you can say, I've been here. I lived in the dorm. These are things that I really appreciated. Not only did I'm saying that I'm interested in environmental science or engineering, computer science, these things, but it's like I also had hands-on experiences doing these things as part of NASEP through the computer build, through the geoscience research project, through the BattleBot competition. And so really like sharing anecdotes that show how you've gained these experiences and how you're connected to campus is super important. So I just wanted to share that. Um, we have access to the common application as like a viewer. So if you decide to go the common application route and have questions, feel free to let me know. I perused through it, and it has a similar layout to the University of Arizona application, especially in terms of the essays and things like that. So it's great too if you're applying to multiple colleges. Um, you don't have to fill something out every single time. But granted, not every college is part of the Common App, so that's the only caveat there. Do we have any other questions so far from folks? Feel free to put it in the chat. Um, some things that I want to mention, because I've been asked them by some of the seniors that are applying from either this year's cohort or last year's cohort. We were asked if there is a specific waiver for NASEP. We do not have a specific waiver for NASEP. There is a waiver for individuals who are from Arizona. And so that is within the application. So once you start applying, at some point there should be a question about receiving a waiver. And so you fill out the questions and things that are on there, and it'll determine if you receive a waiver. I believe that if you select your items and it's not pushing you towards the waiver option, you should receive either like a fillable part to sort of advocate for why you still want to be considered for the waiver. And if you are having issues with that waiver portion, feel free to contact me, and Rudy and I can coordinate and discuss questions about the waiver and get any questions answered that you might have. And also,
Marwin, anything else that
yeah.
you'd add on the waiver, Marwin, by chance, as you've been working with students? I'm sorry, I think you were muted.
Yeah. That was pretty much it. That's
Mhm.
one of the big questions that students have for Native American students. They can put that on there. And another good way to determine whether you can get the tuition fee is whether you get free lunch at school. If you get free lunch at school, that's another determining factor, or whether your SAT, ACT was paid for by the school. That's another way to determine whether you're able to get that fee.
Great. And then the other item is to clarify about the November 1st deadline. If you are trying to apply for the November 1st deadline and something happens and you don't have everything that you need in for some reason, or maybe you didn't submit, you'll get rolled over until the regular decision deadline, from what I understand. However, we asked if there is sort of like a cutoff date for folks to apply. And what was shared with us is that once the class fills, that's when the cutoff is. So there wasn't really like you need to apply by um, February or March or something like that. As soon as it fills up, that's when it sort of ends. And so if for some reason you weren't able to apply by November 1st, my recommendation is just to apply as soon as possible to make sure you're within that next group of folks who are getting reviewed. Because as Marwin said, he said that they're reviewing in batches, and so you want to be in the highest batch to give yourself the best chance. Because if there's fewer spots, then you're competing with more people for those spots.
Yeah, those spots, and then just to kind of emphasize too, scholarships, other things that kind of that priority status by hitting that November 1, that can help you to have priority status for scholarships. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it you're again in that first group of consideration. Also for honors, and then also for like residence life as well. Sometimes we've had years where residence life has filled up, and so if you're somebody who is looking at wanting to have a say in where you're wanting to stay on campus, that might be another reason to try to hit the November 1st deadline. Almost with any student or family that we're working with, either through early academic outreach or that admissions is working with, as they're going out right now and focusing in on 12th graders, we're really emphasizing to try to hit that November 1st deadline. We're also emphasizing trying to have that essay in there. It's less than 500 words, as you heard earlier. And it's that opportunity to allow people to know a little bit more about who you are as a person. Because if not, that's a piece of the application that will be missing, as people are going to be kind of physically reading and reviewing your application as they consider you again for admission, but also for these scholarship opportunities. So those are just some recommendations that we're having for all students. Again, students can apply after November 1st. It's just that it doesn't mean that a student won't receive a scholarship. It doesn't mean that they won't be admitted. It's just that again, it's not that priority status at that point, so things could be impacted. And so for us, as we're working with students and families, we're tending to kind of try to recommend to try to hit that date.
Thanks, Rudy. And
Mhm.
um, for the folks on today, is there anyone that's hoping to apply for the Honors College? You can raise your hand or put yes or no if you'd like. The reason I ask is it sounds like you're able to include additional additional items like a letter of recommendation and things like that. And so um, it doesn't sound like you have to, according to the list that Marwin shared, but it could be helpful to your application. So since we're about a little less than 2 weeks out, if that's something that you're wanting from someone for your application, like a letter of recommendation, I would ask uh, someone who you would want to write that maybe tomorrow, so that you can make sure you have that by the deadline. So Bradley, I saw that you put possibly, so if you need a letter of recommendation, you can ask me if you want to, but I know you also received um, a letter of recommendation for NASEP too. So if you want to ask the person that nominated you for NASEP, feel free. But yeah, start thinking about those items where you might have to ask other people for them either this week so they can have it ready for you next week. Anything else from anybody or anything that you want to share in terms of closing, Marwin?
I would just encourage you all to apply, and it's very it's helpful to apply early, and I think it's something that a lot of students are getting caught off guard with, not just on the res, but a lot of students are realizing the benefit of this, and this is something that we're doing for the first time at the University of Arizona with this early action deadline. And so some people are getting a little thrown off, and not everyone realizes that we're doing this. So it's good that you're getting this information now. So applying overall on the application, it says it takes about an hour, but some students, it can take like 20 or 30 minutes just filling out the application. The longest part would be the essay portion, and that's the part that can take the longest. And with that part, definitely you want to, again, have several people look over your essay, but you can also reach out to me, and I have a list of guidelines and tips that I can send you to help you write that essay.
Earl, a second ago, you were talking about just, I think some of the elements that might be able to be included in the honors college application. I think it gives you an opportunity to add in 3 attachments. If I'm not mistaken, I think that that may be a place where we can offer the STEM push one pager on NASEP that students could include. So if there's a student on the line and you feel like, oh, well, not that you have to kind of submit, is it 3 items or is it 4 items, Marwin?
3.
3.
Yeah.
So if you don't have all 3 items, I think it's okay. I think you can submit as many as you have. But if for some reason you feel like you're under the 3, we do have like a program description of NASEP that would allow you to that you could include in your application, and that would give folks an indication of the type of summer program that or the type of academic year program that you have been involved with. Um, and so it would just tell them a lot more about NASEP. And I don't know that I have that available right now, but I'll check on that, Carol.
Okay. Any other questions from folks? We're going to see if we could pop it in the chat if we
Yeah, let's
see it.
see.
If we don't, then I'll make sure to email it to you. If there aren't any other questions, and while Rudy is looking for us to possibly put that in the chat, I just want to say thank you all for being here today and for taking the time to learn more about the University of Arizona opportunities. You all are in your big years in terms of high school and taking the step to see what you want to do after you graduate. And so it's really important that you're taking the reins and um, attending workshops like this to make sure that you have the information that you need in order to make the most informed decision for your future. And so, as an office and as a program for NASEP, we saw that things were changing with admissions because we do admissions presentations and things like that too. So we wanted to make sure that you all had this information because, as I said before, it's so important to have this knowledge as you're making decisions for your next step. So I want to thank Marwin for being here today. So if you can virtually give Marwin some claps or things like that in the chat, and also for yourselves for taking that time to be here. So yay! And we're here if you have any questions. You have about 11 days until the deadline. So in any way that we can be of support, we're here. Please let us know. Always happy to write letters of recommendations. If you're thinking of that, please tell me now because I will be out of the office starting Friday. So until Monday, so Tuesday and stuff, I can make sure to work on those things, but please let me know. And yeah, even if you decide to go elsewhere, we still want to offer that support to you because we want to make sure that you're going where you want to go and where you will be most successful. So with that, I think that will close out.
Yes, just want to again thank Marwin for his time in coming into the workshop and his willingness to come in and kind of do this specifically for the NASEP participants that were able to be on the call and for those that will make sure to forward it out to as well. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
No problem.
thank you. I'm going to stop the recording.